Hi, I'm Dexter Gelfand, and I'm here to give another talk on my subject of therapeutic spiritual counseling. Here we go. Today what I'm going to speak with you about is the subject of what is called confessionals. In particular, the idea of formulating confessional questions or determining for people what the transgressions are that need to be confessed, what constitutes sin, what constitutes violation, what constitutes a harmful act, other than what one determines for themselves. In, for instance, the subject of Scientology, of which I have background, though I am not what I would call a Scientologist today, I have found value in many elements with a little bit of tweaking here and there. But Scientology is one paradigm that uses this tool of confessionals. Now, there's a problem with confessionals. The benefit of confessing should be obvious. The idea of unburdening yourself of those things that you feel badly for having done, to just be able to get it off your chest and not keep it suppressed anymore. That is very, very valuable. Of course, in order to do that, you have to have a context in which it will be accepted. And that can bring great relief, without a doubt. But the downside is when any organization, religion, or individual, or person who would be a leader, or prophet, or what have you, makes a list of what constitutes a harmful act, what constitutes something that one should feel guilty about. Because at the same time, in doing that, you are more or less implanting or legislating in others' minds what should be helped and what should be harmed. So, if, for instance, you take a pre-written list of confessional questions, as is done in Scientology, it often largely consists of what have you done that could be harmful to the forward growth of the Church of Scientology. And that is a bit of mind control, in that in order to be accepted by this group or this being or entity of religion, you must agree to what should and shouldn't be done. And very often that means putting the desires and purposes and mechanisms of the Church of Scientology, or whatever the religion is, as being of primary importance. If you've had a bad thought about Scientology, or about L. Ron Hubbard, or about God, or about Christ, or about whoever, okay, then the idea is that you must purify yourself. And again, what happens when this is being done is you're subtly being mind controlled. And of course, there is also the peer pressure involved of others who have been indoctrinated to feel the same way, so that a harmful act is defined by what this group or organization or church doesn't want you to be doing, or what would make them look bad. So to speak badly of the organization is now defined as a sin, so you should feel badly for doing that. And that is certainly a bit of mind control. When it reaches the point where you sit in front of someone to confess your sins of voicing or even having your cognitive dissonances, your internal disagreements with the organization, or failing to promote it, or some such. That is not beneficial for a person. That is subsuming your views and subsuming your sense of right and wrong. I really do believe, and always have, that we all have an internal sense of right and wrong. For instance, in terms of the golden rule, you wouldn't want somebody to do certain things to you, so therefore you shouldn't do them to someone else. You shouldn't treat others a certain way that you would not like to be treated. All people should be respected. To cause another person pain is just wrong. These are pretty simple. I think most of us understand these things somewhere deep within us. So I think that if we wanted to maximize the true benefits of a context in which somebody is here to confess what they feel guilty about or what they've done wrong, it would be defined by their own internal sense of right and wrong. And the questions would be so simple and so broad. The questions would be something of the order of, what have you done that you feel badly about? What have you done that you wouldn't want done to you? What acts have you committed that really weren't good? Okay, just very, very simple questions for the person to be allowed to define for themselves what is good and bad for them and what they feel they need to unburden themselves of, without any peer pressure, without any mandating for them of what a harmful act is. When that is done, it is beneficial. But I do have to say that in my own practice, I find it completely unnecessary to ask a person questions to help to bring out their sins or transgressions or things they need to be unburdened of. Because what really needs to be unburdened comes up, and it comes up as one's own spiritual compass finds it appropriate and relevant, and in that order of relevance. And so it does happen in sessions that I do quite frequently that someone will come up with something to express that they don't feel good about having done, or something that they feel they should have done that they failed to do. Now, that's all that needs to happen. We don't need to ask for these or demand these or make lists of what they should feel badly about. Another downside, as practiced particularly by that organization, the Church of Scientology, is that the auditor or counselor who is directing the session is taking notes on everything. He's taking notes on the things you're admitting to having done that can be hurt your reputation. Okay, can be bad for other people to find out who are not being so making it safe for you to express these things without undue consequences. And these notes very often are taken by others in the church who go through these folders to make a list of things that can be used against you, can be used to keep you in place, to blackmail you. And this, in fact, has been done many, many times in the organization, and many people have reported on it, even people who are involved in having done that nefarious activity. So I really, really would not endorse the formal directing or arranging of confessional procedures, or to make it a particular exercise wherein we are asking the person to tell us about things rather than just allowing the person to express what they need to express when they need to express it. Now, it is true that these things can bring about relief. They certainly can. And that happens very often in the practice of Scientology, among other things. Even when it's done to a therapeutic value, it doesn't go much beyond the feeling of relief for what one has already done. In other words, it isn't terribly likely to change a person's behavior so that they will no longer do whatever it was they were doing, if it's something that is an example of a chronic misbehavior. Where there are chronic misbehaviors, what works, and I have seen this borne out in my practice in hundreds, if not thousands of sessions, is to then determine what identity or persona the person has been stuck in that would commit these misbehaviors, as we all, in our natural state, are not trying to do bad or harm or punish other people. So when a person has chronic misbehaviors, what really will change that is to deconstruct the persona, the identity that they've fallen into being, that carries out those misbehaviors, that has some kind of purpose or attitude relating to committing those misbehaviors. So I would steer away from the idea that making a list of sins or transgressions, what's called in Scientology, for instance, a confessional. It's also called integrity processing, and it's also called security checking, and often done without the protection of keeping the material confidential. And then the person can be penalized or punished or expelled for what they've done. That also does happen frequently. It is a subject that is very much something that becomes a source of abuse or misuse, one's confessions. So that's why it has to be done in a truly safe context, without someone else or something else defining for you what a transgression is and what sort of thing you should confess about or need to confess about. That is not in the true spirit of benefiting one to help a person unburden what they need to be relieved of. That happens when a person has things to express without being prompted to do so. That's when it is most beneficial, when it is something that is actually dominating your consciousness to the point where you feel a need to express it and be unburdened of it. Not when someone says on a given area, be it your family or relationships or work or money, that this is what you need to do. Which is not to say that it can't be helpful in those areas. But it is most beneficial when it is expressed by the participant and not prompted or asked for by the counselor. And beyond that, as I've already said, what's really beneficial if we're talking about some chronic misbehaviors, in other words, repeated time and time again, is to determine and then examine the persona, the false me, the artificial self that a person has to have fallen into to be engaged in chronic misbehaviors. And I do have the techniques, and I believe others may also, for resolving and deconstructing one's personas or identities that are false and not who you really are. I think this information is something that needs to be well understood. Thank you for listening.